Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today guys, we're going to be diving into the world of ELROND and specifically the price action of EGLD. As we get into this video guys, if you find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, why not subscribe? Tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will stay up to date with all of the updates that we have here at Cheeky Crypto. Right, with all that out of the way, let's dive into this technical analysis on ELROND. So we're going to start things off guys with the weekly chart like we usually do. And we can see that we haven't got a huge amount of data here, but we've got a reasonable amount to make some interesting assumptions. Okay, so the first thing we can assume, right, is we take a look at when our candle wick over here started. This was basically August, and we can see that this was a bit of a downward trend. This is actually pretty much in line with our expectations of the entire crypto space. There was actually a wave 1 coming up, a wave 2 was coming down. Wave 3 pushed us back to the upside. Wave 2 then brought us back down to the lower areas. And then we went up into a wave 5, okay, and wave 5 is still ongoing. Okay, so actually we take that structure, we know that there are like 5 impulse waves. 2 of them are corrections, when wave 2 down here, wave 4 over here, for example. Now when we take a look at where we've been so far in terms of our low point and our high point, it represents about 4,000% in gains. That is okay. It's not the best performer in our portfolio by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also not the worst. For example, we take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin only rose up 1,600% in that time period, whereas obviously EGLD did 4,000%. We can take a look at something like VeChain that did 18,000, Harmony did 18,000, Anchor did 34,000, Matic did 42,000, right? So obviously it's not the best performer, but it's done very, very well nonetheless. Much better than the higher cap coins like Ethereum and of course Bitcoin. So it's performed well. Obviously we had the correction, we had a pull back in line with what Bitcoin was doing. This took a lot of people by surprise as they were calling for about a $10,000 kind of limit at the top here. They thought that basically with the amount of coins that were ever going to be created, it was going to instantaneously create a huge demand and spike for this due to scarcity. Now ultimately I do think that ELROND and EGLD will eventually get to $10,000, but I do not think that is going to happen this particular cycle. Instead, we are going to rely on the science and the technicals to give us some kind of expectations of where things are going this cycle and where things are going to go next, right, in the 2025, 2030 scenarios. Ultimately, I am seeing another 250% gains or so on the horizon, and that will take us to about $870 in this particular cycle. So at the point of recording this video, we are trading at about 251, and again, I think that we're going to see that 250% get us to the $870. I think that'll be where we end up for this particular cycle before we go into a bear market and we go into accumulation zones ahead of where we are then going to go into a multi-thousand-dollar kind of levels for 2025. Overall, everything's looking pretty good, and there's nothing majorly wrong with our weekly chart. Everything's lining up nicely. We did set a new all-time high recently, and we've had a slight pullback. We can see that during this initial wave to the upside, we were overbought. The correction wave in the middle here, that was oversold, and we're back up into the overbought area just now as we track this 5th wave to the upside. So overall, no problems to report here on the weekly. Everything's lining up nicely. So we'll jump down into our daily view, and then from here, we can actually take a look at what's going on with a little bit more detail, right? So we had a good surge through these key areas, right? We're battling around, getting rejected from the 702. Bitcoin pulled us down, and then we surged to the upside. We went up, set new all-time high, and we came back down, retesting this previous area of resistance just down here. Okay, so now from this point, we want to be looking to track back to the upside. But in order to allow that to happen, first of all, we have to see a few things happen. Obviously, we need to find good support, which we obviously have done just here, and we want to hold that support. When we drop down into our hourly view, we'll have to make sure that there's no problems there. We can see the stochastic has pulled back again pretty nicely here for a good traction to the upside. We actually take a look at that overall. We're actually tracking pretty well to an upside here, so a good bounce from this point is possible. We don't have to drop down any lower on our daily stochastic. So lots of progress has been made from the lower areas that we were at to where we are right now. So there's nothing majorly wrong with this and nothing majorly wrong to report. When we actually bring this back down a little bit, we can take a look at where they are heading. If I actually grab hold of my price range here, it's actually a little bit less than the 250. It comes in about 246. Okay, and as you can see, these Fibonacci areas, they take the high area of our wave 3, the lows of wave 4, and predict out the 4.236 at $870. Okay, so on the current performance that we've seen, this is where we are likely to end up, okay? Without speculation and all of that kind of stuff. Of course, this is a highly speculative market, right? Being the fact that it's really small, relatively new, not a lot of money in the actual industry at all. It doesn't take a lot of money to move the needle. And if you have some interesting speculation that people really get behind, you could potentially move the needle much higher than this. With that being said, it would take something quite significantly in order to avoid all the algorithmic bots or day traders out there who are trading the Fibonacci levels, okay? Which is why you see things like this really happening, right? They resonate around these levels for a reason. This is basically just where the traders are trading these zones. So ultimately, this is what you tend to find, which is why we like to rely on these for giving us kind of prediction points for where we are likely to find rejections and where we're likely to find support. So overall, the 4.236 comes in at 817. It would take something very special to break that, in my opinion, something that would avoid all of the current performance that we've seen so far. So technically speaking, that's what I'm seeing here. And of course, as we go into 2025, that's where we start really seeing thousands of dollars in terms of price predictions and price expectations. So that does allow us, the means that we can build up very significant positions during the bear market ahead of 2025, which will be fantastic. So do join us for that. We'll be talking about all the different buy zones that I'm going to be using in building up my position. So again, 246 gets us to 246% gets us to that $870. So let's jump down into advice.io and take a look at the underlying data, right? So for those who do not know, advice.io, there is a link down in the description below. They use artificial intelligence and machine learning to help us understand the underlying value of cryptocurrencies without any human intervention, i.e. remove the bias and you can actually just get the facts from the data. And here what we can do is we can actually take a look at a few things in a little bit more detail. It's an A2 cryptocurrency overall, which means it's the second best crypto rating that the platform can give, which means it's in pretty good standing. We can see that the AMI-HAD ratio is an A2 rating, not a problem there. The fear and greed index is an A2, it's very greedy, no fear there. The Sharpe ratio, A2, so risk rewards in our favor, good to see, well above the 50-day average. Moving averages, A2 rating, no problem with that. And the profitability is an A1, the best it can be. So overall, there's nothing wrong with the underlying data, nothing we should be alerted to or concerned about. Ultimately, ELROND EGLD is performing well, and there's nothing wrong with the underlying information that sees EGLD and ELROND well. So ultimately, there's nothing stopping us from progressing to the upside. Let's jump down into our hourly. This is where we start to see some interesting volatility. Obviously, the market as a whole is quite volatile at the moment. And there was this triangular wedge that was forming. We broke through this. Bitcoin pulled us down into the lower area where we found support. We then pushed up again past our trend line here, but then got rejected again. Bitcoin pulling us down a tad. Now here we can see some interesting things. We found ourselves wicking down a little bit lower than our previous support. And we are moving up towards our trend line. The problem that we have with this is that we are overbought. Okay, so the expectations at this point would be that we'd have to lose that momentum. Okay, bring us back down, hopefully to this support line of around 244. And in doing so, that should hopefully allow us then to get that break that we need to the upside with this triangular wedge just here. Okay, that's the next kind of battle for us. Now, we do know that the daily is okay, the weekly is okay, the underlying data is okay. So hopefully we won't see a significant pullback that sees us completely pull all the way down. Instead, we'll find support because there's no reason to be selling right now. So you can see this from the fact that we are really well overbought right now. Okay, so I'm not overly concerned about these micro movements on the hourly. This is something that we're going to have to see us kind of get through technically. And if we are ever in doubt, we do of course just zoom out to what that weekly is looking like, what that daily view is looking like, as this gives us the idea of where we are going, and it allows us to keep our emotions in check. If we just look at the hourly chart, or lower than that, all we're going to see is volatility all the time. We'll see the price moving up and down, and it's not going to do us very, very well. So ultimately what we want to do is we want to stay and pay attention to our long-term vision, where I think we are heading, and basically making sure that nothing majorly structurally changes a part of the larger formats. Obviously, things can change quite rapidly on the smaller time frames. 1 hour, you might be rapidly down, the next you might be rapidly up, right? But with an hourly, everything aggregates together. So with the daily, everything aggregates together to show you a candle on the daily move. Likewise, the weekly, 7 days to one weekly candle. And again, they allow us to see the bigger picture, the bigger moves overall, right? And that's the structure that we need to see that keep intact, right? The hourly doesn't matter so much. It's all really about what goes on with the daily and the weekly when we are talking about where we think the bull run is going to end. Okay, so ultimately, I'm pretty bullish on eGold. I don't see any problems here. I think there's a little bit of volatility still on the smaller time frames. I think that's going to be around probably for another couple of weeks or so. And then once that's out of the way, we should be, looking at that $365 price target getting acquired. Guys, I'm going to leave that video there. If you have found it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, do subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.